Um, we're live now, so I've started recording. We can go.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome everyone. It's been a while since we have a community call, but we're doing an Infura and DevX community call for November. And we have a very exciting agenda today. First, we'll be talking about the MetaMask Dev landing page. I'll be going through just a quick demo of it. And many of you may have seen this through the Istanbul event. Welcome everyone back from ETH Istanbul and Dev Connect. And then we'll go through the MetaMask SDK. There will be Ezgi who's here, who's going to cover the SDK. Then we're going to cover the Gas API, which launched yesterday. This has access to some MetaMask components, which we're really excited about, and it's access through Infura. And then we're going to also go through the DIN partner launch with EG when he's able to join. So first, let's go through the MetaMask landing page. So we launched this silently in the past month. It is under metamask.io/developer. And welcome, Colin. If you want to join, you can talk through this as well. And at a very high level, it has access to different developer programs that we have. So the ambassador program, fellowship program, consensus scale all together. There's tutorials that we're building, and there will be eventually additional tutorials that we're launching with this with some courses pages. So feel free to watch these. There is a MetaMask developer Slack, as well as a newsletter that we'll be creating. There's other pieces here around connecting to MetaMask SDK API, different snaps that are available, testing and deploying with Linea, as well as running your dApp on Infura, and some example applications that are built by our RAD team. And there's a lot of material here, so feel free to look through it. We have Discord servers. We have ability to, look at our Flask pieces for developing snaps, which I think is gaining in popularity for our permissionless snap store that we hopefully will get out there. The community calls that we have on MetaMask are all recorded and viewable on YouTube, and we've exposed them here. This is also connected to, the ampersand, with our Bevy account. This is our global Bevy account, so you can see all upcoming events, which is what we're working on now. And also the Gas API. So if you wanted to learn more about that, here's a place where you can click to view those over here. And so just a very high level, we haven't really done any type of large distribution of this yet. So welcome everyone, and you can see this and feel free to give us feedback as necessary. There's also a chats.dev that we've created, but this is more for in-person. Feel free to look at consensus.chat, and we'll be updating this for more in-person engagements. But this is available today. Great. At a high level, the content mapping that we've built, again, the main thing is that for most of the in-person meetups, we have Telegram channels. Again, this is not very publicly released yet, but thank you for joining, and now you have a preview of it. We have listing of different global bounties that are available, and it's really an easy way within consensus.chat for our developer relations team to engage with people that they meet. And then in terms of the developer content that we're creating, there will be a course page, but effectively all of these MetaMask and Infura Linea tutorials come together into multiple product feature workshops. And we're still going to have our product blogs for MetaMask and Infura. We're still going to update our documentation, but effectively it's a way for us to help you get started with bootstrapping, help you go to market by launching your dApps and snaps, and then help you scale by leveraging the efficiencies that we've created within MetaMask portfolio, for example, and other applications that we have. And what we want to lead towards, more usage of MetaMask, but overall more usage of our services altogether, kind of a more coherent, journey and narrative across MetaMask, as well as Infura and Linea, is to create these different tutorials and different types of pieces and playbooks that can help you with your journey, depending on if you're at a hackathon or if you're building your dApp and you want to start launching that dApp, then all of these pieces will come together eventually. But looking forward to those future phases. Great, just a very high level. Oh, EG has joined, so you can add EG. I'm going to hand it over to Ezgi, who's going to cover the MetaMask SDK. Go ahead, Eski.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ezgi. I'm the product manager of MetaMask SDK. MetaMask SDK is a library that provides connection between any dApp and MetaMask wallet clients in a secure and seamless way. You can go to the next slide. So we have multiple SDKs. We have a JavaScript SDK that supports web apps, React.js, or similar frameworks, React Native, Node.js, Electron, and pure JavaScript. We have an iOS SDK that supports native iOS apps. We have an Android SDK that supports native Android apps connecting to MetaMask mobile app. And lastly, we have a Unity SDK that supports any game that is built on Unity game engine, that is either a desktop app, a WebGL, web game, or a mobile app. MetaMask SDK provides connection between MetaMask wallet clients and all these platforms. It also provides cross-platform connections, so you can also connect to your mobile wallet to your desktop app, for instance. Next slide. We also recently started integrating MetaMask SDK into connector libraries. Here you see the connection flow of MetaMask SDK via Web3 onboard library. Soon, WAGMI, Web3, React libraries also will be live. We are also going to be integrated in Third Web. So you don't have to maintain SDK integration separately, but you can use any of these connector libraries to access MetaMask SDK and to enable connection via MetaMask SDK. Next slide. And I briefly want to mention our new feature that is supported by the MetaMask SDK. So via SDK integration, you don't have to set up a separate Infura API. You can directly add your API key into the SDK and then use SDK to directly access to network for read-only calls. This will allow you to basically access users' information that does not require users' confirmation, such as like get account balance or gas estimation, things like that. And you can do all these via MetaMask SDK as well by just adding your Infura API. Yeah, that's all. Let me know if you have any questions.
Great, thank you, Eski. We're going to move over to Lauren, who's going to talk about the Gas API. Lauren, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren. I am a developer advocate at Consensus. So imagine if your text messages were failing 60% of the time or even took 5 minutes to send. Honestly, I would throw a tantrum, but this is the norm that we accept for transactions somehow. So the MetaMask Gas API gives devs the exact same tool that powers the MetaMask gas fee estimator. Our very smart friends at MetaMask knew exactly how important it was to be able to estimate gas fees before you execute a transaction. And so they built out extensive functionality to be able to give users a calculator to determine this ahead of time. So we decided to bring this functionality into the hands of our developers. MetaMask Gas API right now covers 12 different networks, including our ZK EVM rollup Linea. So why do you need it? First of all, it will save you money. Depending on the use case, you can programmatically prioritize your transactions to save time, costs, or execute at first one, depending on the importance of the network. Second of all, our Gas API supports more networks, and it provides devs more flexibility than any comparable API on the market currently. And it's reliable. So MetaMask has refined and battle tested this functionality to ensure full scalability for your dApp. And lastly, the ability to query any gas-related data using just one API will save a lot of time and headaches. So here we have some demos here on GitHub and live. These will be linked either in the chat or for your availability afterward. But in the meantime, we can take a look at this in action. So let's skip to the implementation video.
Yep, there is a longer video, Clemens here, but this one is implemented within EventC, which is built by the RAD team to kind of showcase the changing of the different gas based on different icons, and all of this code is open source for you to review as well.
All right, thank you, Clemens. So if you're ready to get started building with the Gas API, we have a ton of resources available for you. Some of them will be linked here. We have different tutorials, explanations, and high-level documentation. All right, thank you.
Great, thanks, Lauren. I'm just going to post. This is a great video that showcases how to use the Gas API, and there's more links around here. We've just launched this yesterday, so really excited to see this moving forward. Last but not least, we have EG here, who's going to talk about the DIN partner announcement that we made at DevConnect in Istanbul.
Thanks, Clemens. Hi, everybody. I'm EG, one of the co-founders of Infura, and like Clemens just said, we had a big announcement at DevConnect. Andrew Breslin from our team was over there and able to present and share a bit about what we've been working on, what the plans are for DIN in the next few months, and that's what we're going to also share with you today. So in case you missed it, DIN stands for the Decentralized Infrastructure Network. People talk about decentralized RPC. We took a more like general way of framing like what we were building as decentralized infrastructure, not just focused on RPC, but to start with RPC because that's the business that everybody knows Infura for. What does it mean? It means that as a customer that needs access to Ethereum and other blockchain APIs, you can go to one place, get an endpoint or URL that you can put into your application that is the equivalent of talking to your own blockchain client, something that is always on, always in sync, updated for you, and it's something that makes your life easier as either a developer or a user. Our focus with how we approach DIN was like making sure we're setting up good foundations for our growth. Like what's the clear purpose that we're building this network for? Start with that and expand outward. So the core problem that we're trying to solve is the centralization of RPC and the opportunity that we have to make the infrastructure powering many Web3 applications more resilient by building this network. And then as a customer that is going to be using this network, or a consumer that's getting data from this network, does this actually meet your needs? Is it scaling to the level that you need to? Is it meeting a specific quality of service? And is it hopefully doing it at a lower cost than existing solutions? And how we are approaching it is right from the beginning. Infura is existing alongside the other RPC providers that are participating in DIN, while we're sort of the stewards of building out what this network is and how it will operate. Once the network is operational, Infura isn't sort of like an arbiter of the goal is that Infura is one of the operators that exists alongside many other RPC and infrastructure operators that are on the decentralized infrastructure network. And this is what the journey has looked like for us so far. We announced it in September of 2022, went to ETH Berlin, which is always focused on how core decentralization of many aspects of the Web3 stack can make the ecosystem stronger or better overall, we announced that we were going to start this initiative. And it wasn't like a product launch. That was the launch of the intent to build out this network, because we didn't want to do it alone. We wanted to have partners that would join us on this journey and help us not only build out technical components and participate as operators, but also contribute to the design. So we approached it the traditional way of setting up partners that were interested in participating in our early access program. And then we worked together through the first part of this year, met at ETH Denver, spoke with about 6 to 12 different operators at ETH Denver that participated in reviewing initial designs for the network, starting to shape what acceptance criteria and service quality tests would be. And then we were finally able to start running those acceptance criteria and quality tests earlier this summer. What the reason for that, we decided to take a federated approach to building out this network, which is you don't start as completely decentralized, which requires incentive mechanisms, tokens potentially, to incentivize people to participate, and you already have to get your economics right, or else people will sort of lose faith in the project and maybe step away from participating. So instead of going that route, we said we would start with a federated phase where we start routing some traffic to providers. And that required that we start with running acceptance criteria and quality tests earlier this summer, culminating later this past summer with onboarding some RPC providers to start testing some failover traffic, which we did successfully with a couple of the operators. And then we, in September, had another follow-up DIN workshop around the time of the Ethereum New York conference and events in September, talking about 3 core problems that I'll get into later. And then finally, we announced the next milestone that we hit, which was the partner announcement at the Decentralized RPC Summit earlier this month. So here are some of the partners that were in that announcement. The group on the left, many of them were able to make it to that Decentralized RPC Summit. All of the people on this page have been great partners so far and have been collaborating either through technical design review, conversations, and brainstorming about different problems that we're trying to solve, providing infrastructure already for some of the testing, and they've been great to have along the way. The workshop that I mentioned is focused on 3 problems that we're solving in this federated phase. If you've already tried using Infura and other blockchain APIs for consuming data, one of the issues that you deal with your app is you're always concerned about the economics of it, because you're subscribing for a service that you're using to run your business, and you need to make sure it makes sense for you. You're concerned about the quality of service and making sure that you're getting reliable infrastructure that doesn't make your application go down. And you're very concerned about consistency and accuracy of the information. And in the many years that we've been now running Infura, those 3 things have always been like the most important things to our users and our customers. So those are the 3 workshops that we focused on in New York. So on the quality of service side, we started defining what's our acceptance criteria, because if you've participated in any decentralized networks before, they're permissionless, and permissionless by intent and design, which means that there needs to be something else that makes sure that a subpar performance is either penalized or removed from the network to ensure a minimum level of quality. In the traditional like Ethereum staking world, it's slashing. If you don't meet your quality of service, you get slashed. Many other protocols take a similar route of finding a way to slash based on performance, but we don't have a token at this phase. So what do we need to do is we need to define the acceptance criteria and say, to join the network, you need to meet this level of quality of service. And that's what the workshop was working on for workshop number 1. Oh, sorry, Clemens, can you go back to that previous slide? I thought we had something else there. On the consistency side, my workshop group was working on data consistency. How are we defining data consistency? I think we have another slide later where I can get into more detail about that one. And then on the economics, obviously, we're asking teams and businesses to participate in this network, and we need to make sure it makes sense for them. Like what is the investment of time and resources that they need to put into it, and what's the opportunity that they're doing it for. Next slide, please. This is potentially what the future of DIN would look like as we expand beyond RPC. Like I said before, we didn't call it the decentralized RPC network. We called it the decentralized infrastructure network because over the last few years, it's been clear that just RPC isn't sufficient for building an application. People want better APIs than just the core RPC, and users are better served through that. You can use something like a trace API and more like index token APIs to provide a better user experience. Maybe it's because you're able to simulate transactions and that results in a better outcome of a trade or some other transaction for your users. Or it's just as simple as having indexed cached data is optimized for certain queries, and it provides a better user experience. But those are harder problems to solve if you're trying to solve all of these things at once. So we're focused on solving decentralized RPC first, and hopefully many other boxes on this slide will be things that we can add in the future to the decentralized infrastructure network. As I mentioned, the 3 working groups are led by members of our team. So I was leading the internode consistency working group, which means when you have a single blockchain node, you know you're going to get a consistent response because you're only getting your data from one source. And the way that you typically scale traffic when you're running an API like Infura is you start indexing things. You start putting transactions in the database, you start putting event logs in the database, and you're able to coordinate responses so that your user is in sync. When you get a transaction from this database and an event from this database, you ensure that they're coming from the same like tip of the chain and their data response is accurate. The issue comes when we introduce multiple providers because you can't guarantee that without some additional work across providers. If you send one request to Infura and then pick another partner from that DIN partner list and send requests to them, it might be the same response 10 seconds later, but there might be some intermittent latency between the consistency of the responses. And so the way that we and several other groups have approached solving that problem is you need to have a reverse proxy or router that's able to provide a consistent experience to the end user. And so this working group was focused on defining that solution. Our head of product, Tom, was working with members of the working group on forecasting usage. What's the expected volume that they should be able to handle? They would do that for capacity planning reasons or just for understanding what the unit economics of this would look like, because we might design a different system that has different unit economics based on if it's handling 1 million requests per day, or if we know it's required to handle 1 billion requests per day. You don't want to over-engineer the system, and you want to make sure that what the partners and RPC providers are committing to the network is sustainable. Lastly, Iris and Leo from our team were working with looking at our historical testing data. By the time we did this workshop in September, we had already done the workshop we had already done testing on a couple of the providers, and we were able to share some anonymized data of like what that was looking like in terms of like what was latency, what were better response times across methods or error rates and things like that, and where do we think things need to be so that we can match or exceed the experience of existing customers. Next slide, please. All right, so here's a little high-level overview of what those problems are and how they all tie together. The slide here. Oh, sorry. Can you go back to that one really quick? This was taken from one of the initial designs that we had put out for the decentralized infrastructure network. So if you start with the left and dApps sending their API requests to an ingress operator, that is that gateway or reverse proxy router that I was talking about. Once that request is sent there, it gets routed to a node operator or multiple node operators, and that's why that consistency problem needs to be solved right there. The node operator is participating in whether they're profitable participating in this network. That's where the pricing, forecasting, usage, and capacity planning comes in. And then those two boxes that are in like a beige yellow, the bulletin board and the node registry, that's for like the future design of hopefully this becomes a on-chain permissionless version of this rather than a federated phase of this network. And that means that a node operator registers with a service registry. And there's, right now we're using the analogy of a public bulletin board where a stream of information about how these operators are performing is published so that traffic can be routed based on up-to-date information on what the capabilities of operators are and what the performance of those operators are. And that's where the onboarding and acceptance criteria comes in. So this is what the roadmap through the rest of this year and the first quarter of 2024 looks like. Right now, we've gone through this initial like router implementation phase, and we're still kind of in that right now. We've onboarded one new protocol to participate in DIN, meaning there's a new network that we're working with that's going to be serviced by DIN providers as like the primary way that their developers get access to blockchain RPC. And that's really exciting. We're setting up a bounty program there so that our DIN operators are able to get compensated for serving the new demand that's coming on this new layer 2. We've identified what the acceptance criteria should be and iterated on that, which allows us to continue testing and onboarding new operators. We've worked on this new like router specification, and by implementing that, it allows us to start serving failover traffic with the DIN network, meaning that many applications out there have multiple RPC providers that they use, so that if one of them has an inconsistency or a temporary outage, their application is able to route to something else. But that's all handled application side. The goal here is that by working with the existing Infura team and our team on the DIN side, we onboard operators that can start serving that failover traffic for Ethereum and Polygon, so that Infura's existing customers and anybody else that actually wants to put a DIN endpoint into their application can start getting failover from multiple providers without having to actually go out to those providers to set up an account and have an additional relationship. And then in the first quarter, we're going to add a couple of new networks, Arbitrum, Optimism, and Avalanche for failover capabilities. This is what the node operator journey looks like if you're an infrastructure or RPC provider that's interested in participating. You go through our onboarding, it's like a traditional onboarding LOI type of process right now to kind of commit to participating in this. Then you go through the RPC endpoint testing with our team, where it generates a review so that your team and ours can take a look at that and see if it meets the criteria that we need for the quality of service. Then once we get all of that kind of paperwork out of the way, we move in setting an RPC provider up to join this failover traffic initiative. And then after this failover traffic initiative, we move to an optimized traffic phase within this federated state that we're going to be in for the next few months. And that means that we'll optimize traffic. So not just when things fail would go over, it would be if a provider is able to serve things more performantly and it's better for the end user, we can have the router make intelligent decisions of when and where traffic gets routed. And then lastly, that inter-partner phase where partners are then able to participate in that routing decision. Here's what the bigger picture roadmap looks like. Can you click through and just kind of show the whole thing? Thank you. So we start with that failover feature to initially. Once we prove that out and it proves to be a stable experience and better experience for our users, then we move to increase network coverage beyond this so that both Infura and MetaMask are able to provide increased network coverage and resiliency for our users. Then we start looking at the fun stuff, the decentralized components, that on-chain registry, bulletin board, those types of things are going to be later on the next year in terms of like the development roadmap. And that allows us to move from that federated phase to a permissionless phase. It's a different way of rolling out a decentralized network rather than just dropping a white paper and saying this will be coming out in 2 years. But we consider this our pragmatic approach to building it out when we already have an existing user base and customers. All right. So lastly, tomorrow I'll be doing a Twitter space with my friend Mike from Grove, formerly known as Pocket. That should be fun. We'll be talking about decentralized physical infrastructure networks or DPINs. And if you haven't been following some of the stuff around that, there's a lot of great talks that I can share in some like after presentation links from things that went on at DevConnect. All right. Thank you, everybody. Clemens, do you want to wrap up?
Thanks for the presentation, sir. There's construction in my house, so Mandir, can you help me with any questions that might be available?
Yeah, sure. So I do see there's one in the chat box by Vikrant. What's the scope and status of blockchain in healthcare? I am working on a decentralized health records app. EG or SG, would anyone like to take it forward?
I wouldn't be able to answer this one. I haven't seen anything recently. Like I know that there were some concerns from, I can't remember some of the earlier projects that were trying to tackle blockchain in healthcare, where privacy concerns about like where records were stored was something that had come up, and I haven't heard anything new or in the last couple of years. So sorry, not my area of expertise.
Cool. I don't see any other questions in the chat, but any other comments? Esgi, Lauren, EG, or Clemens, or anything to add? Colin?
Feel free to check out our new developer portal. If you go to metamask.io/developer, we'd love to get your feedback on it as well. And you can find a link to our Telegram chat and Discord there as well.
Perfect. Cool. I don't see any other questions. So, Clemens, would you like to wrap this up here?
Sorry, there's still construction in my house, but thank you so much for all of the speakers today, and we'll share the slides as well as the link to the recording. Should be in the same place as the committee call, and we'll send out information for everyone on the call. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks all.